she could read my mind. Maybe we could dance all night while the streets are empty. It's been some time, now you know what's on my mind. I just wanna hold you tight while the streets are empty, while the streets are empty. You light up my life, I wish that you could read my mind. Maybe we could dance all night while the streets are empty.
Get ready for the ultimate circuit, for the pinnacle of multi-class racing. This is Total Sim Sport, and this is round 4 of the European Sprint Series. And it's welcome everyone to what promises to be another fantastic evening of racing as we venture into the French department of Sarthe to visit a track that is famous worldwide for exactly the kind of racing ESS delivers. My name is James Parfitt, and tonight I am joined again by Chris Rowlands. Chris, welcome to the show.
Good evening, James. Good evening, everyone.
So Chris, what are we expecting from tonight's race?
Well, it will be a very different kind of race compared to last week at Interlagos, that's for sure. The profile of this circuit could not really be much more different, with a 6-minute plus lap for the drivers to navigate. We're going to see a lot more battling within the classes because traffic's not going to be an issue until at least 20 minutes into the race, so much later than usual. And what that's going to lead to, in my opinion, is some more aggression within classes, and hopefully that means fewer incidents, as these drivers have proven they can battle it out at max speed already, hopefully.
Yeah, it's shaping up to be an absolute cracker of a race tonight. And of course, we're now already into week 4 of this championship. To be honest, Chris, I can't believe how quickly this is going. We're already at the beginning to get a feel for which drivers are going to get the overall win within their classes. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that is exactly right, James. In the LMP1s, we've seen supreme pace from Jan Kurbs, who just keeps finding ways to win. I mean, last time out, we thought he was going to get undercut and just, cruised away by the end of it. You can contrast that with the equally rapid Jan Studensky in the LMP2s, who was set for an equally dominating win last time out that was cruelly taken away from him. But that let Dominic Cortum, who has provided some of the most high-quality battling I've seen in my life for 2 weeks in a row now, to take a well-deserved victory. And this isn't forgetting, of course, the GTE field, where Junior Borges last week out ran a very consistent and quick race. We didn't really cover him that much because, he just quietly got the job done with very little drama.
Yeah, it's a very competitive field indeed, and I'm sure we'll have more of it tonight. Of course, Le Mans is a circuit steeped in history. Indeed, this series has previously been named after the circuit that hosts the famous endurance event in motorsport, the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Any motorsport fan with a passing interest in GT racing will know this circuit. But Chris, where should we expect the action tonight? What's going to be the best overtaking spots? And is there anywhere drivers will need to be a little bit extra careful?
Well, careful for sure through the Porsche curves and that entire section from there all the way up to Dunlop, really. It's the most technical part of the track. It's difficult to pass, and I can see the prototypes getting desperate if they get stuck behind the GTE field to try and not lose time. But it's so risky. As we know how early the GTEs have to commit to their line, especially in those faster turns. The best passing moves within the class are probably going to be down the Mulsanne straight. But, you know, that's sort of the classic draft and then into the braking zone. But the drivers will have to think about that carefully, as what you don't want is to lose the toe of the driver in front too early from battling, as that's going to leave you vulnerable to the guy you've just overtaken. Not to forget that fuel saving is going to be a really strong part of the racing here, more so than usual, because, again, with the really long straights here, you can save an absolute, but not literal, ton of fuel just by drafting lap after lap.
Yeah, it's going to be an absolutely great race tonight. So let's take a look at the standings for the broadcast split so far, starting with the LMP1s if we can. And then we'll take a look through LMP2s and obviously GTE. So as you can see live on screen at the moment, we've got Jan Korbs. He's on 51 points. Will Woodland's on 43. Carlo Labatti on 33. Andre Reddington on 25. We've got Taylor Mills. She's in here tonight. She's on 20. James Armstrong, he's on 13. Alex Baku, he's on 8. Daniel Pizzot on 6. Marshall Hubert on 9th. He's also in 6. And Tim Perry rounds out our top 10. So let's take a look in LMP2s. We've got Didier Duchiteau. He's on 30, joint top with Kenny School Branson. Andre Barrilero, he's on 25. Robert Guilford on 21. Thomas King on 21. Gabriel Ruse, he's on 18. Alexandro Izzo is on 15. Jan Studensky, who we mentioned earlier, is absolutely epic. He's on 12. Alistair Catchpole on 10. And rounding out our top 10 is Diego Zamora, who is on 8 points. So into the GTE, we've got Roman Verdolivo, he's on 36. Andre Leidinger, he's on 28. Kirill Koloboksov, he's on 26. Mikael Reck is on 20. Orimus, I'm just going to call you that, is on 18. Pedro Martins on 12. Hughes Decanter on 12. Jeremy Relu on 11. Nicolas Piqueur on 10. And Richard Simnar is on 10 points as well. So we can also have a look at where we're visiting for the rest of the season with the calendar. Will be up on your screen shortly. So as you can see, we are at Le Mans this week, and then the next week we're going to Hockenheim, and then following that with Silverstone before finishing in October's racing at Daytona. The final leg of the season will see us visiting the Red Bull Ring, Watkins Glen, Monza, Road America in November, and then finishing off at Sebring in December on the 2nd. So plenty of action still to come, and it's all live every Thursday evening here on the Total Sim Sport YouTube channel. One more glory for our drivers. Like and subscribe and share the good word about the brilliance of multi-class sprint racing here on iRacing, the world's premier motorsport simulator. Now, Chris, we mentioned earlier on about drafting, right? Now, I've done Le Mans, and I did it in a Radical. Okay, so you can imagine, you know, we were at this for quite a while. Now, I always found if I drafted too early, I ended up getting overtaken by the same person that overtook me going down the straight. So, you know, I'd overtake them and then I'd draft too early. He'd come back behind me and overtake me. Are we going to see that tonight, do you think?
Yeah, you probably will. I think if the drivers are going to be sensible, especially towards the top of each field, they're going to work together, because if you're swapping places constantly, chances are you're wasting time. Whereas, you know, you can trust that these other drivers are going to be of a similar pace. So what you can do is, rather than overtake into each braking zone, because if you think about it on the Mulsanne straight, you've got 3 separate straights there, and then another long straight after that, and then another long straight into the Porsche curves. And so that's 5 different opportunities that you can overtake in the draft, and that's 5 opportunities on one lap to lose time compared to the guys surrounding you. So I think we'll see if these drivers can sort of work a bit better together, because it is in your interest, especially say if you're in second and you're pretty confident that the guy in first is matching you for pace. You can undercut them into the pits, and that will be worth a lot of time here.
Yeah, it's good. As I say, I think them straights are going to play an absolute massive parts in tonight's racing. So Chris, take us through the grid for tonight as the drivers get ready.
Certainly. So in the LMP1 field, Simon Cowlarts has taken a pole by a pretty impressive half a second to Andre Reddington, with only 0.02 of a second separating Reddington from third place Daniele Pizzo. Carlo Labatti is in fourth, followed by Antonio Navarro and Mark Gomez, and then Jan Curbs, Taylor Mills and Sophie Hack all didn't manage to set times, but I think we'll see three of the fastest drivers we've seen in this field. They'll be coming through that, I reckon. And then in the LMP2s, we've got Lasserbach on pole, followed by Horton. And then we have got Leiden Lee, Borja Bueno, Christian Pereira, Daniel Taylor, Federico Leonardi, Dimitri Picardo, Jan Studensky in 9th, that's another one to look out for, followed by Alan Albert in 10th, who didn't set a time, along with Christophe Demay, Benjamin Cowra, Trevor Myers, Schmudlach and Koos. And then in the GTE field, Luxac is on pole, followed by Andrew Dawson, Mikkel Gard, Juan Lemus, Christian Streitenberger, Michael Mendes, Said Bucara, Jeremy Chave, and then Vincenzo Principe, Mikhail Rack, Jackie Lotterman, Hugo Valentin, Richard Simner, and following at the back is Alejandro Soto for a 14-car grid. So that's a pretty even spread of classes there, James.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting race, I feel, as always. So we'll jump and let's have a quick chat while the drivers are lining up. We'll see who's in YouTube. Richard, Mr. Tom Split. Okay.
And I was just saying earlier how there's no chance he'd miss top split. So sorry, Richard, I have cursed you.
Well, I've got him on my timing screen, and you just read him out on the grid. So yeah, we won't worry about that, Richard. So Jonathan McLaughlin, busy this week, always, mate. As you'll find out, we'll read it at the end of the broadcast. As you can see, guys, we are lining up by turn 21, which was just after the Indianapolis Arnage set of chicane, and then we'll go down into the Porsche curves. We'll be heading down into the Corvette curves, and then the Ford chicane, and then we're out onto the start finishing straight as Dunlop curve and Dunlop chicane. So Chris, we've got this obviously gap that we're used to seeing between the classes. If you can, just while they're on the pace lap, tell us exactly why that actually happens.
Well, it's a safety thing. What you don't want to have happen is classes tripping over each other, especially at the start of the race, because you're not racing the guys in the other class. They're kind of an irrelevance in terms of you winning your own race. So by leaving these gaps between the classes, if say, for example, if the LMP1s are going to trip over each other into the Ford chicanes, and we've all seen YouTube compilations of cars tripping over each other into the Ford chicanes, by leaving that gap, it allows the LMP1s or the LMP2s to recover before the next class gets there, which means that the other classes their race isn't going to get disrupted. Of course, I think anyone who's raced in multi-class racing, especially at this circuit, can tell you firsthand of experiences they've had where that's not worked, because as much as you're doing it for safety, there's still the advantage of if you can get that jump on your class, then that's an advantage, and obviously racing drivers are going to take that advantage, but it's not necessarily worth the risk of ruining your own race before it's even started. We've got a whole hour for you to demonstrate that you're the fastest driver on the grid.
I think that's the important thing, isn't it? They have to realise they have got an hour, and it is a very long lap round here, you know, and I think, to be honest, the concentration level that these guys have got to have, it's got to be absolutely spot on through the whole thing, and I think that's where we're going to see maybe a few issues when we sit in, but as you can see, guys, we are coming through. We go down the start-finish straight, and we got Colotz. He has gone out as an absolute flying start from Reddington from second. Pizzo in third, Labatti in fourth, Navarro fifth, Gomez in sixth, Mills in seventh, Corbs in eighth, and Hack in ninth. As we go with the LMP2s, back has got Houghton up in first place. We've got Lee in second, back second. Bueno he's in fourth, Pereira in fifth, Taylor in sixth, Leonardo in seventh, and Albert in eighth. On to the GTEs now. As you can see in the GTEs, we've got Luxic has got an absolute flying start from these guys. Dawson in second, Gade in third, Lemus in fourth, Streidenberger in fifth, Bouchard in sixth, and Charvet in seventh place there as we're heading down out now with the onto the LMP1s as we're going down 10 and 11. That was a fairly clean start at the moment, Chris, to be fair, wasn't it? I'm quite pleased about that.
Yep, although we have lost Navarro to the back of the LMP1 field, and Studensky has actually dropped all the way. I think he's had an incident before the start line, and both of those have exactly demonstrated why you leave that gap, because I don't know if you saw on the start line there, Luxak had that second or two gap to Studensky despite that incident, so that's allowed the GTs to get away nice and clean, like you say. And yeah, there have been some decent movers and shakers already. Sophie Huck is up 4 places along with Taylor Mills, so that's something to look out for. Jan Kurb's not had quite as good of a start as we were perhaps expecting. As we see him here, he's actually lost the draft already. That might prove crucial.
Yeah, as we go on board with now, Houghton in second place. He's got Bueno 0.13, 0.12, and closing rapidly at this moment. He's in first place, but we may see Lee coming up very shortly. If he's not on our left, I'd be very surprised. He's not. He's tucked in. One behind each other as we're heading down 12 and 13, coming down the Mulsanne Straits after this one. Now, this is what we're exactly talking about. He's got this long run, Chris, and we are literally in a tow train. As you can see there, we've got car number 3, which is Bueno pulling out. What are we going to see coming in as we're coming back now? As we're going in with Bueno is coming into the Mulsanne turn. As we're going around, he's still Pereira. So we've got Houghton, Lee, Bueno, back, Pereira and Taylor. Are we going to see these guys defending early, do you think, Chris? Or are they going to be looking at that toe and then toe back again?
You can never tell. Some drivers want to be really racy at the start. Some drivers are really consider themselves really good on cold tyres, and that's when they want to take advantage of that by getting out in front while they can. And I think other drivers will more be looking at it as a case of just bide the time, learn how the car's behaving for the conditions. I mean, don't forget, we're racing in the evening here. It's going to get cooler as the race goes on, which means you can actually push a bit harder than if this was a mid-afternoon session, for example, because those tyres are just going to hold up a little bit better in the cooler air. And I think that hopefully will mean we see some more aggressive battling later in the race, because right now, I think often, when you've got 6 drivers here, all within half a second of each other, and, a few more not that far behind, it's a recipe for disaster if you start battling too close.
Oh, we've just had Labatti. He has gone round the 4 chicanes there. He has gone, Carlos is in front of him at the moment, and Corbs is behind. Now, that's quite surprising for Corbs. We're used to that, but he does have a somewhat, how can I put it, testing qualifying session, doesn't he? And then we're used to him coming, straight the way back through the track. So do you think with Jan Corbs, though, we're expecting to see the same kind of thing? As we see there with Valentine as well in the car 17 cars. He's got Charvet in the Ford tucked right up behind him as we go through the Porsche curves now. We'll be dropping out onto turn 26 and 27 before we head down into the Corvette curve section. But we got back is climbing all over the back of Bueno. Bueno takes the inside line back to come back on him. He's going to attempt the cutback as we're heading down into the Dunlop straight and be going onto the start finish straight very shortly. And they're side by side, 2 abreast as we've got Bueno on the left and back on the right as we're going into the chicane. We're going around the last corner now. We're going past the 4 chicanes down into the Dunlop curve, and we've got 3 cars absolutely battling out in the LMP2 series. Back, Bueno and Pereira are right, one by one, tucked up behind each other. And Chris, to be fair, that was actually really clean. That could have ended up in a lot of a different way. But Chris, I'll be with you in a minute as we go forward with Pereira. He's pulled out. We've got Bueno on our left-hand side. Back is on our front. He's in front of us. He's tucked in again. He's gone. He's pulling the double draft from Bueno, from back in front, but he's not really close enough as we go in there and heading out onto the first part of the Mulsanne Straight, Chris.
Yep, I think if Bueno if Bueno didn't have the draft, Pereira would have been making that move there. But you saw as soon as he pulled out, Bueno was just able to defend it because of Back's draft there. But I can tell you that Houghton and Lee will be looking at this in their relative, and they will be laughing because they've already pulled out 2.5 second gap to these guys, and that could be absolutely crucial. It just allows, if Houghton and Lee can work together now, they're going to guarantee themselves spots on the podium just from driving just a little bit more cooperatively. Although, as I say that, they are neck and neck right now. So we'll see if Lee thinks he's maybe got the pace and will try and overtake. And it's got a similar thing here in GT actually with Gade and Luxak. They've pulled out a gap to Dawson, it looks like.
Yeah, they are currently coming down the first part of the Mulsanne Straight as we're going to be heading down into the chicane of 12 and 13. We let the LMP2 car 34 past us there as we're heading down on board with Gade. He's got Luxak tucked right up in front of him with 0.23 and dropping quickly as we go into 11 and 12. Heading out now, Chris. Now, people are obviously, if I'm sitting here and saying, like, we've got Carlo Labatti, he's defending hard from Corbs there. They're in currently 6 and 7. They're tucked up in, coming into the Corvette curves, and they're going down into the Corvette curves there, and we'll be heading down into the Ford chicanes. Now, this is what we expect from Corbs, aren't we? He does have that testing qualifying, Chris, and we do see him start coming through the pack. But Le Mans is a different entity to all the other tracks we've had. Is he still going to be able to do that with these long straights that he could lose it back again?
Well, I think aside from just having incredible race pace in the first place, Curbs, it just does seem to know how to get through traffic without losing any time whatsoever. I think that's where a lot of his advantage at Interlagos stemmed from. And of course, we've still got another 15 minutes of racing before the LMP1s even catch the GTEs. And to be honest, unless you're supremely unlucky, the GTEs aren't really the problem for the LMP1s because the pace differential is so big. You can usually work out when to get past them with minimal fuss. But they've still got plenty of time to go. There's plenty of quick drivers in front of Curbs. He's a good 6 seconds down on Pitso, and we know that's not a huge amount, but these are pretty quick drivers that Curbs has got between him and the win. So let's not discount any of those guys or girls just yet.
Yeah, and we can see there as well, Corbs' last lap was a 3:13.52. Pizzo's last lap up front here was a 3:13.92. So we're coming round turn 11. Into the first part of the Mulsanne Straight, we have got Andre Reddington behind us, 0.7408, and he's actually dropping back at the moment. But we go on board with Sophie Hack, who's got Max Gomez just in front of her. She's 0.65, and we go on the left there. We can see Gomez go past us on the right. Now, are we going to be able to defend this coming down into the chicane section as well? We've got Colotz right up behind as well. We are. Well done, Sophie Hack. She's now in third place. She's up a massive, absolute massive 6 places. And I think to the viewers at home, Chris, just explain what, 6 places in an official isn't always massive. But obviously we've got Colotz now. He's attacking Gomez. Going down the straightaway, we'll be coming into the Mulsanne turn corner. And there you go. Car 21, Colotz is past Gomez as well. So Gomez is a pretty horrendous straight as we see Corbs go past Labatti as well. So that straight away produced a lot of overtakes within that section. Now we say up +6. In officials, that isn't so big. But in this kind of class of field, +6 places is absolutely massive, isn't it, Chris?
Well, I mean, Sophie's literally only got 2 drivers that she hasn't overtaken so far in that field. That just shows you the pace that she's had so far. And I mean, if you can see the timing tower, she's set 2 purple sectors out of 7. Is one of the quickest drivers on the field right now, although actually Carol Arts behind has set an absolutely astonishing 3:11, which for this stage of the race, with a nearly full tank of fuel, that is pretty quick. So let's not count our chickens before they've hatched just yet. Hack is obviously very quick, but Carol Arts is 2, Gomez is 2, and we're even there sort of ignoring the fact that Pitso and Reddington are first and second on pace, on merit. So as great as Sophie's pace has been so far, we can't discount just how good this entire field is. I mean, that's 4.5 seconds separating the top 7 in LMP1, so we've got plenty of time left to go. One other thing there, Pitso is the only one in the Porsche, so we'll see if that makes a difference in terms of the pace on the straights, for example.
Yeah, we've got Lyden Lee. He is all over the back of, funny enough, going into Indianapolis. Well, what can I say? Pereira's tucked it up in right up behind him. He's in a 4th place. Sorry, so we've got 2nd, 3rd, and 4th within literally a second of each other as we go down into the GTE. We've got Sim Noah has unfortunately been overtaken by Mendes. Now, he was in track going, woohoo, hi, ma'am, I'm on TV. You definitely are, sir, but unfortunately we caught you as you lost the place to Mendes. But keep going, Sim Noah. I'm sure you'll get it back as well. As we go with Jan Studensky, he's making his way back up as well, as we see from his -4 in his grid position from qualifying, but is up into an amazing 13th position. Now, Jan is obviously notoriously quick, and we've seen him come through. We're just going to follow the Pizzo and Reddington battle 2 seconds, Chris, and then I'll get to you regarding Studinsky. Now, as we come down into the chicane at 11, we're going to be taking the inside. We're going to bounce the inside curb as we're coming back out again and trying to take as much as we can at the exit curb. We're heading down the Mulsanne straight. We've got Andre Reddington right up behind us. They're both on boost now, Chris, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's slightly different here compared to your shorter circuits because it's such a long circuit. You've really got to manage that boost a bit differently. And of course, the two different types of cars, they regenerate differently. So that could factor into this as well. But I think, again, if I'm Reddington, with that slight gap to Sophie behind, I'm just going to bide my time for now. There's no need to pull anything too aggressive because, again, you've not got that gap with the rest of the field. But, yeah, we'll go and have a look at Picard here on a replay, see what's happened here.
Yeah, Chris, take us through the replay.
Well, we're coming through the 4 chicanes, which is notoriously tricky. Oh, and there we go, just slightly overcooked it into the second part of it. Luckily, has come out somewhere where no one else has been collected and then didn't beach themselves on those curves, because I've done that before, and to be honest, that feels a million times worse than the initial spin, because you just sat there while everyone's going past thinking, oh, how has this happened? But no, you can continue going, and I think at a small spin, that's only really cost you 10 seconds in the grand scheme of things. That's not going to end your race.
And I think with such a long track anyway, you know, you can kind of gain that back if you can start catching toes of drivers in front now, as we got Gade. He is currently in 3rd place. We've got Ludwig, Dawson and Gade and Rack now as well. But we've got Gade on Dawson as we come in to the first part, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 into the S's section as well. And he's Dawson's just done a 3:49.7, but Rack has just done a 3:48.52, Chris. Now that is absolutely epic for a GTE car. And do you think that's toe related, or do you think that's just pure of his own pace?
I suspect there'll be some toe within that, because that is substantially quicker than the rest of the field at this point. And, you know, these are all top drivers, so you're not going to see those huge aberrations, as we see some cones being flicked off the track there by Leonardi, doing the work of the stewards for them. And, yeah, I just think, you know, we'll see these fastest lap times come down more and more as the race goes through. I'd expect to see the LMP1s, for example, which are currently lapping in the 3:11s, 3:12s. We'll see a sub 3:10 by the end of the race, I suspect, from these guys. Traffic allowing, of course, and as you can see on the track map in a minute, they are about half a Mulsanne straight away from catching them now, so that's about 7 or 8 minutes to go.
Sorry there, Chris. We've got Jan Curbs. He's making moves on Gomez now and has gone past Gomez. He's up into 5th place. As we're coming round through the S's and into the Tetra Rouge section, we've got Andre Reddington. We'll have a quick rundown of the top 5. We can do that really quickly. We've got Pizzo, Reddington, Hack, Colosse and Corbs in the LMP1. We've got Picard, Albert. Picard, my timing tower is having a little bit of a breakdown, and he's flicking, unfortunately, all
so
over
we've got Houghton, Back, Lee, Taylor and Pereira, the top 5 in LMP2, and then looks at Gade, Dawson, Rack and Valentin are the top 5 in GTE currently.
No, thank you very much for that, Chris. Yeah, on that one, as we can see, Rack now has got Dawson right in front of him. We're heading down into the second part of the straight, going down into the right-hander, into the Mulsanne corner. But we got Michael Mendes as well. He's got he's just taken Soto, I believe that is behind him. Mendes is doing rather well in this Corvette. It's not a car along with the Fords, Chris, that we see very often, but he is -3 on his grid position, but he's taken 2 spots back, hasn't he? He's gone past Sinnar, and he's gone past Soto. Next is Lotterman at the road. He's going to be doing quite well pulling that in together in that car.
Yeah, I think as someone who's driven the Corvette for the GTEs before as well, there's a certain point of pride when you know you're one of the only representatives of that car. You want to do the best you can almost for the car. I mean, obviously you're racing for yourself as well. And I think it's a similar situation for the Ford drivers, because obviously it's a very Porsche-dominated circuit. And as we see here, Sophie, Hack and Cowlarts, they have worked together, and we have now got a 4-way battle for the lead of the LMP1 class.
Now, and just to add to that excitement as well, we are coming on to the back of the GTEs now. We're going through Arnage and on to turn 21, 22, 23 before we go into the Porsche curve. So that's going to be very interesting for Pizzo, Reddington and Hack, because they are coming onto the back. Now, traffic management, would you say it is as big here as it is on other tracks, Chris? Or do you think the long straights really does kind of allow us to make our moves a bit more freely? Because, you know, we have got a good part where we can overtake on this track. Is that what we're going to be looking at from the LMP1s, is traffic management, but maybe not jeopardizing ourselves as much?
It's a slightly different profile to, as we're seeing a replay here of the LMP1s approaching a very crabby GTE.
Reddington and Pizzo, isn't it?
Reddington's got past Pizzo, yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if the GTE played a part in that.
Well, that's exactly what we were talking about, wasn't it? You know, with that traffic side of things, as you know, are we going to traffic manage a little bit more? We're going to see Pizzo go back past Reddington now. Is Reddington going to tuck in behind? Yep. And I think, to be fair, that's probably the smarter move for these, as we're going to be coming up into the Dunlop chicane and through the S's. We're going to be out onto the first section of 8, 9, 10 past Tetra Rouge. But I think, Chris, the traffic management here is a little bit more straightforward, should we say, than it is at some of the circuits, because that long straights allows us that flexibility, doesn't it?
Well, yes, but so if you compare it to, say, Interlagos, where we were last week, where basically the entire track is a mess and it's difficult, you've obviously got the nice long straights here. But if you catch a GTE at the wrong place, as we just saw, that could, you know, Hack has lost the draft of Reddington there just because there was some traffic in the way, and there was not really anything Hack could have done. She was kind of stuck there. And I think Cowlarts is taking it very easy there, because you could perhaps have looked at making a move. But why do that? We've still got half the GTE field to get through. If you catch those GTEs in a braking zone, it can spell disaster. I mean, I've watched some of the official races earlier today, and we have, you know, as much as there is that speed differential, if you catch them in slightly the wrong place, like just before the Ford chicanes as well, so later on here is somewhere to look out for traffic. It can really mess with your race. I mean, I saw an LMP1 lose about 4 seconds of its lead just because it caught a GT at the wrong place in the Ford chicanes. So they'll just basically be hoping and praying that the GT field is caught on the long straights, which so far hasn't happened for everyone.
Yeah, I do wonder though sometimes if Hack had a little bit more boost management on that one, because he was obviously with Colot's coming right up behind it, and all of a sudden it looked like he did have a little bit more of a management of his boost there, Chris. But we go back on board now with Gade, who has still got Rack, Dawson, Valentin and Busho in the back, but we've also got the LMPs coming through here as well. The leaders, Pizzo. Now this is going to affect Pizzo, because we have had a GTE try and make an overtake. They're going to go 3 wide. They're in the middle, all 3 of them. Oh, this is, oh my, oh, that was absolutely toast. But do you think that was the mentality of Pizzo, Reddington, Hack had to follow them through then? You know, because Colotz has lost out massively just by being stuck behind them. They caught them really at the wrong end of the time. They caught them at the end of 16, 17 and 18. And we're going to have a look. I think Pereira's had a little bit of an off there, Chris. Take us through what has happened to Pereira.
Just, you know, maybe trust in the down. Oh dear. So it's quite easy to lose the car there on the high-speed corners if you trust in the downforce maybe a little bit too much. Not a huge amount the car behind could have done there, really. I think that was Leonardi was the other one involved in that. And yeah, it's a little bit blind, a little bit unsighted, and your spotter's not necessarily going to spot that in time for you to make any reaction anyway. Plus, there's a driver behind you. You've got to hope that they do the same thing. But yeah, we were saying exactly that with Cowlarts. He's lost 2 seconds from getting caught up in the wrong place there. But of course, that's the GTE leaders. They're perfectly entitled to their own race there. They don't, you know, as long as they're not doing anything too silly, they are perfectly entitled. You know, with Gade going for the overtake there, perfectly entitled to do that. And luckily, thanks to the sort of really high quality of all of the drivers in the field here, we didn't see an incident there. But Cowlarts has actually lost out so badly from that Curbs is now ahead of him.
Yeah, so we've got Pizzo, Reddington, Hack, Curbs and Colotz there in the top 5 of LMP1. Now, as you see, Reddington, he's letting Pizzo know he is still there as we're coming down onto the straight. Now, we're going to be seeing this move, and I've got the funny feeling Reddington and Hack may look, Hack's possibly a little bit further back, but I think Reddington with a toe from Pizzo will be making this move down the first part of this straight. I'll be very surprised if he holds on to the second part, but then again, he's not going to want to get tiptoed back. And as we see in GTE, Luxak has lost 2 places there. So it'd be interesting to see as we go on board with Rack now. What has happened here? We got Gade in front of us. No, he's got a slowdown there, Chris. I think that was a predominant slowdown, didn't it? There was no other reason for that. As we see jump on board with Carlots now. He's lost touch with the guys in front. He's 3 seconds behind Hack. And going behind him, we've got Jan Curbs, which is what we said. He leaves it. As I say, he doesn't have that good qualifying lap. But his race pace, Chris, he's exceptional at times, isn't he, really? Especially as we've seen him before.
Although Curbs had managed to get past Cowlarts at the end of the last lap, but Cowlarts has just managed to retake that position. But these two won't want to be fighting too much because 2.5 seconds up to Hack is not an insurmountable gap, but it will quickly become one if they keep fighting amongst each other. Because especially, here, Hack has probably got, she'll probably feel she's got the pace advantage over Reddington and Pizzo, and will want to try and get past. I think she's actually making a move on Reddington right now. And yeah, they're side by side. She's already got ahead. That's her up to second now. That's 7 places gained. I mean, there's a few drivers in the GT and LMP2 field who've also gained 7 places, but no one as high up as Hack is yet. So yeah, this is the sort of the glory drive so far.
Yeah, and I think that move was done in the correct place there because they were coming down into the braking zone of chicane. It didn't give Reddington the time to get back along, back by him, because obviously the straights, as we know, are so long here. So at the moment, we've got Pizzo, Hack, Reddington, Colots, Corbs, Gomez, and Labate. That rounds out your top 7 of LMP1 there. So it's going to be, we've got now 37 minutes left, okay? We're doing 3:12s, 3:15s, 3:16s on that last lap due to traffic. When are we going to looking at pit stop wise, Chris? Because are we coming into that zone, do you think? Or are we going to be waiting another sort of 5-10 minutes before we really need to look at that? As we go on board with Pizzo and Hack now, as we're coming down into the 4 chicanes before we go across the start-finish straight, we have got Hack right up behind Pizzo. Is this move going to be made into turn 1 and through the Dunlop's curve into the chicane section? I think he's a little bit far back, Chris, but we've also got Reddington tucked up right behind us as well. He's a 0.43 back and closing. I think this is going to be Hack making his move possibly on the next straight. Chris, what do you think? I don't think he's going to go through the S's.
Well, we'll see how aggressive she wants to be. She's clearly got the pace advantage at the moment. She's really been sort of rolling through the field. And the sort of trouble is here, if you do take that lead too early on the Malsand Straight, are you just going to be overtaken immediately? Because, of course, the lead driver is the only one here that won't have draft. But Hack has got a good run out, and she is right behind Pizzo here. I would expect to see a move. Depends how much Pizzo can hold off the draft. Certainly a little bit of weaving there just to make sure that Hack has to work for it. She has to earn that overtake if she's going to go for it.
Yeah, we've got Reddington tucked right up behind the back of Hack as well. Hack pokes his nose out. It lets Pizzo know that we're here. Oh, he's overrun. She's overrun the corner. She's overrun the corner. Unfortunately, Reddington now. Is Pizzo still out in front at the moment, or has Reddington gone through? I think... Yeah, Reddington is through. Colots is in second there. What actually happened as she comes into the brakes? Was there contact? She just looked like she outbraked herself. But was there contact there with Pizzo there as well? Yeah, because can we get an onboard? So it goes Colots now coming into the shame. We've got Pizzo goes straight on our right. We've got Hack. She's off on our left. That leaves Reddington, Colots, and Corbs 1, 2, 3. But Hack, if we can go back on board now, there is Jan Corbs. Chris, explain that. What did we miss? The darkness, miss our breaking point, and just put ourselves in complete kind of jeopardy, didn't we, really?
I think the one thing we do know is the catalyst for that was Hack being sort of stuck in the middle there, because trying to defend from Reddington, braking just that little bit too late. Very, very lucky not to collect Pizzo at that point and to just go straight on, which was the right thing to do. I wonder if
Chris, 2 seconds. We've got Colots making the move on Reddington as we go down into Indianapolis. We've got Reddington dropped down in second. Now, Colots is obviously currently the fastest man on the circuit with 3:11.83. None of them got damaged. You can see Hack's back out on track. Gomez is, Labate is, and Pizzo is. Unfortunately, Pizzo lost a lot more time. Seemed to take a lot more off track as well. Hack, she went through the chicane section. But we got Reddington has gone back, looked like he's gone back, but here's the incident again. We've got Pizzo on our right. Hack goes left. Hack takes the chicane. Pizzo misses, looks like he just missed the breaking point coming round into that second part of that chicane, Chris, which allowed Reddington through. Colotz is taking him again. Reddington has gone back through again. So I think there's going to be a lot of this swapping now as we're coming down into the 4 chicanes onto the start-finish straight. Well, that last lap on its own, the last is just, well, it's just been manic, Chris, because we now got Hack in third, who's climbing all currently over the fastest man on the circuit in Colotz with his 3:11.83.
Yep, I think Carol Arts of the 4, I at the moment looks like the most likely to win for me, because Hack, as much as I don't think there was a huge amount of contact there, I think Pizzo might have been braking just to say, oh, sweet, yep.
It's wide again. Unfortunately, there that allows Jan Curbs now, who's up an amazing 4 positions. Hack is no slouch. She's up on 5 positions as well. Pressure, Chris, for Hack. Does she need to sort of sit back and take a breath and reshape her head, you know, using some of these long straights to maybe gather her composure? Do you think that's kicking in 33 minutes?
I think some of that was probably just the adrenaline pumping from the previous lap. I mean, one thing that we've not noticed that's happened is Jan Studensky is in the pits with, I would assume, damage, or it might be an early pit stop. 45 seconds is certainly a bit too long. It's put Jan right at the back of the LMP2 field. And yeah, so that's something to keep an eye on. But Luxak has sort of slightly recovered there from the loss of 2 positions, back ahead of Rack and in second, right in touching distance of Gade. And yeah, we're now with Trevor Myers, who's got Pickard for company behind him.
Yeah, as you can see, 9 and 10. Sorry, my teeth will be working very shortly. We got Reddington back past Colotz as well. Coming into the LMP1s, we're going down into the Mulsanne. Now we're catching up with the back of the LMP2s. Now the LMP2s have got a little bit more power, but not as much. How much of an issue do you think, you know, we're going to be catching them, I reckon, coming down into Indianapolis, which, as we've seen, you know, is great if you can catch them at the end, but not so much if you catch them kind of right on top of the chicane. They look a little bit further down the road, so maybe we won't. But the LMP2s are stuck in this kind of middle ground, aren't they? They've got to look behind for the LMP1s, and they've got to try and manage what's in front of them with the GTEs. So are they the most difficult class to drive in an endurance, Chris, do you think?
In that sense, yes, but I would say, to be honest, the LMP2s for me personally are actually the easiest of the 3 classes to drive, just in terms of hot lapping them. Obviously you do have that little bit more to think about, but for the LMP1 perspective on this, yes, it's maybe a bit trickier to overtake a class that is faster than the other class, but it does mean if they catch them in the wrong place, you're not losing quite so much time through those corners, because they're still a prototype. They're just a bit down on power. They've still got that downforce. They can still go through some of these corners at pretty decent speeds. However, you know, as we're seeing here, Reddington, this is not really somewhere you want to try and make the overtaking. He's now getting, you know, purely by accident, he's getting boxed in and a little bit blocked, but I don't think LMP2 could really go anywhere there, so you don't really know what to expect from them, as I think this is Hack with Gomez, perhaps.
Yeah, I think this is running wide into the Porsche curves. You know, it did well to save it there, but again, this is what we're talking about with adrenaline kind of thing. As we see Reddington there, Colotz is into the pits. We've got Jan Curbs now tucked right up behind us. He's managed to go up 5 places from his grid. We've got Colotz, Gomez, Hack are all in the pits as well. So them 3 are going to be in and out. Now, what are we looking pit stop time wise, Chris? Because these are really the first LMP1s we've seen. Are we going to be going full fuel, no tyres, or are we going to think about tyres but possibly not take them?
No, no one's ever going to take tyres in the sprint race. An hour is too short of a time. You don't make up the time in the remaining time in terms of having those fresher tyres, because obviously don't forget you've got to warm up that fresh set of tyres and put them on, so it adds up too much. And I mean, they're all stopping plus 10 seconds, which means they're all carrying some level of damage. But I would say the main reason they've taken that slightly early pit stop is they don't have to worry about LMP2 traffic for a little bit longer, and if they've timed it perfectly right, they may not even have to lap an LMP2 whatsoever, because the LMP2s will be coming in about 15 minutes. They might not catch them, so that could really be an advantage. Just that, you know, second or 2 per interaction with the other car, and that's going to potentially really cost Reddington, Curbs, Labate and Pizzo, who have decided to stay out. So that's something interesting to keep an eye on. And Taylor Mills, who pitted on lap 1, will still have to pit again. So unfortunately, the advantage she has there, not so much. But the other 3 were all stopped for about 16, 17 seconds. So no one's really gained or lost there, but our Cowlarts, Hack and Gomez. So we'll have to see who can make their second half of the stint work best there.
Yeah, as we can see now, Andrew Dawson, he's currently in 3rd position of GTEs here, Chris. We've got a replay of Stadinsky. Just run us through the replay, Chris. And
I think that's him going past Albert, who's had to make his pit stop now as well. Studensky pitted on lap 7 and Albert on lap 8. They will probably be fine to go to the end on that. I would be surprised if they weren't. So Studensky is not completely out of the running yet, although he is over a minute behind Koos in 11th. So he will have to show some of that Studensky magic pace that we've seen before to really recover some positions. But the rest of the LMP2 field are not that split apart from each other. So, you know, if he can get that pace back, he's not completely out of the running.
Yeah, I believe we've got another passer as well, Streitenberger there as well. He's currently in 12th place in class, 34th overall in his Ford. Now that is some amazing looking Ford there. I've got to be honest, that car did look absolutely completely amazing. As you see the replay now, Chris, coming up on screen at the moment. Run us through the replay, Chris.
Yeah, there was a bit of a cheeky push there from Gade, and you can see the other car recovering in the background. Again, sometimes so if you just miscalculate the braking point, or you've not quite anticipated just how much extra speed you're carrying because of that draft, and you can see that wasn't actually the biggest of touches, but it was enough. And obviously, once you're locking on the brakes, you can't really slow down any better. It's frustrating when you're the victim of that, because Gade's not actually. As we see Reddington there, very nearly not get that car stopped on the line. Hopefully no pit stop penalty for them, but Houghton has pitted in LMP2. It'll be interesting to see where Houghton comes out, and if the LMP1s that have pitted, are they going to make it out? Is Harley Houghton going to still be in the pits as they go past? Because that will validate what they've done. Although Reddington and Pizzo are trying to close that off by pitting early as well, which just leaves Curbs and Labate now. And you see Curbs really not leaving any room, you know, absolutely maximising the available space there to get past the LMP2, and that's why he wins races.
Yeah, as we see Curbs now coming onto the Mustang straight, we've out in front at the moment. We've got Labate 7 seconds behind us. We've got Reddington on a further 20, but we have got Corbs and Labate who haven't pitted, and Reddington is back down into 5th, possibly coming out of his pit stops there. So we go on board with Jan Kurz. We are going through chicane into 11 down the second part of the Mustang straight before we go down into 12 and 13. Now he has made up an amazing 6 places now, as we see Benjamin Cura here in the car 32. I believe that's on the right hand side, and 31, and that's Deme. As we come down the straight into becoming into the right hand corner, Cura tucks in front. At the moment of Deme, as we're coming down into the right, into the left, a second chicane, and then into the right before we go on to the other part of the straight, should we say, going down into the next section in 4th and 5th respectively. Cora's out in front at the moment, Chris, but out, you know, LMP1 behind him, LMP2 tucked up there as well, as we see. Is that Reddington, I believe, trying to squeeze past him there? Chris, take us through the replay. What Mikael Rack's been up to?
I think it's just another view of the touch we had earlier. But yeah, they seem to still be running all right, and we can go back on board with Cowra now, who, yeah, I think this LMP2 field has actually spread out quite a lot. We've sort of not noticed that happening. I mean, some of that is down to some of the mid-pack pitting, so Houghton having pitted, it's making these gaps look bigger than they perhaps are, because of course they're now out of sync. But almost the entirety of the LMP1 field has pitted early. You've just got Curbs and Labate and Taylor Mills, who is unfortunately 25 seconds down the road because of that early incident that she was involved in. So it kind of, for the LMP2s, they're sort of stuck now, because if they pit, they are going to come out right in the middle of the LMP1s, and I think that's not really that whole section you get between the start line through Dunlop and the S's and Tetra Rouge. that's probably the most awkward place on the circuit in terms of lapping cars. So if you're those LMP2s, unless they've got a spotter telling them this, they're just going to be waiting until the absolute end of their fuel tank before they come in. As Curbs now, I believe, is into the pits as well, or is that? I believe no, it's the LMP2 field.
Yeah, that's the LMP2. Curbs is going round again for another lap now. So Labati's just gone in as well. So that promote Pizzo, I would have thought, up into P2. But there you go. Labati is into the pits as we look at it at the moment. We've got 24 minutes remaining, guys, as well. So currently we've got Corbs in first, Labati in second. Mills up into third, but as we said, maybe a little bit out of position. So we've got a GTE car making his presence known in front of Colotz there. Again, 23 minutes, pit stops taking place. We've got pretty much the whole of the top 10 of the LMP2 field are in the pits at the moment. Backley, Bueno, Taylor, DeMay, they're pretty much all in the pits together. Labati's in as well. So 23 minutes to go. Colotz is into second. Do you think Colotz, Reddington, Pizzo maybe for the win, or do you think Curbs has got a big enough gap, Chris? What do you reckon is going to happen now?
Well, the LMP1 pit lane time is just a shade over 50 seconds, and Jan Curbs has currently got a 51-second gap to the front. And of course, don't forget, of course, that 51 seconds in the pit, they're still travelling through the pit lane. So. And also, there's a pit entry here is actually quicker than the Ford chicanes are. So I think at the moment, Curbs is, for me, looking like it's actually 42 seconds. So it's going to be very, very close indeed. And we saw this last week where we thought Curbs had no chance. And at the moment, Cowlarts will probably be thinking, oh, that's me, that's easy. And he did lap 0.2 of a second quicker on the last lap. But I think we might be seeing a repeat of last week in LMP1 for Curbs, as we see, unfortunately, Michael Rack has just outbraked himself a little bit into the end of Malsan at turn 15 there, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, so we've got on board with Colotz is in second place at the moment, trying to get the LMP2 to move as quickly as it possibly can. That's car number 3. That's actually the leader. That's back there in front, has now gone a lap down of the LMP2s. Colotz knows he's got to close the gap. He's got 41.89 gap to Curbs. It's going to be interesting there. If we can jump on board with Curbs, Curbs is going to be looking at coming round it. It's the start of the pit lane very shortly. He's going down 21-22 into the Porsche Curbs section. Now, if we can stay with him here, we've got GTEs in front of us at the moment. He's flashing them because he knows every second, every ounce, every tenth is going to be mightily important. It's going to be very important. I think you need to, guys, Curbs to get through. Coming down into the last part of the Porsche Curves here. The pit lane's going to be on our right-hand side as we come down through the Corvette curves now as well. Is this going to be the lap for Curbs to be going in, or are we going to be seeing? I think this is in. This is it. He's in. As we see, we've got Colotz now coming down the 20-21-22 before we start the Porsche curves. Curbs is going to be running this as close to the line as he possibly can to get his stop there. We've got GTEs coming into the pits. The top 5 of the GTE class have come in as well. So as we jump on board with Colotz, we're going down into the Porsche curves, into the Anage, and we're a little bit further on, actually. We're in the Porsche curve section there. So we've got Curbs still in the pits at the moment. So we are through the Corvette curves. We got GTEs, hopefully they will be out of our way before we come down into 30, into the Ford chicane. And here we are with Colotz. We're going through the Ford chicane. We've still got Curbs in the pits. He's on and out, I believe, as well. This is going to be very tight now. Colotz has got to get his boosters up. Where is Curbs? Curbs should be just in front of us at this moment as we come down. I think Curbs has got this, Chris. I think
there he is.
There he is coming down, isn't it? He managed to stay ahead, 0.76 seconds though, Chris. So he's not massively fast, still puts Colotz within that tow draft, going to be coming down into the first section. So he managed it, but I don't know if he got the gap he was looking for there, Chris.
No, and Cowlarts now will have access to the draft. This is going to be a very tasty last 20 minutes. And of course, one other thing we've not really discussed yet is if these drivers are right on the edge of the fuel, if they go over the start-finish line at the wrong time and have to do effectively nearly an entire extra lap on that hour, we could look at some drivers not make it to the end of that lap because they've not put enough fuel in. It'll really depend on who's been fuel saving the best. So let's not count anything out. But also, Carol Arts has had 3 laps extra on curbs to get used to the extra fuel in the tank, to get used to the tyres. I know it's the same tyre set of tyres, but they will have cooled down slightly in the pit stop. So, you know, I think Carol Arts does have the advantage here, even though he's behind on track. I do think right now, if I you know, gun to my head, I was asked to say who's going to win this race, I reckon Carol Arts is.
Yeah, as we see curves there trying to break the toe, weaving as well. Unfortunately, we've just heard that Labate may have had an incident, should we call it, for a minute there, Chris, until we can actually see what actually happened to him. So there we are. He's just overcooked it on the chicane, the same kind of thing as Hack, but did he manage to keep it? Oh, I'm not entirely sure there, because he did. Oh, he's towed back to the pits there, Chris.
That's potentially a mechanical issue, maybe a software or hardware issue for him. It looked a little bit like what Sophie Hack did there earlier, where just out braking herself into the chicane, but it's the follow-up that looks a bit unusual. That's very unfortunate for Labate, who I think every race we've seen him in, he's had very good pace and just not really been able to make that pace work out. He's not really been near the front of the grid that often. Really, I think Labate's been one of the ones that can match curbs for overall pace. And as soon as I said Carol Arts was going to win this, he's actually dropped back nearly half a second from curbs. So just goes to show that these drivers will at any time try and spike commentators when they make predictions.
Yeah, well, lucky enough, normally, Chris, as a commentator, we're normally cursing people. So it's good that they've gone the other way and managed to actually still keep it on track. As we go through the leader of the LMP2s, that we are on board, we're back now. Houghton 9 seconds up the road again. Taylor 17, Lee 21. Really, Chris, from a point of view that we are looking at now, I would say 17 minutes to go. This is possibly backs to lose. I think that's what we're going to be looking at as well. And Luxek is in the lead of the GTEs. We've got Gade 1 second up. Car number 1 in position 1. We've got 1 second gap to Gade, who's got a further 4-5 seconds maybe going out to Soto at the moment. Again, probably pockets of battles, Chris. We kind of see this every now and then where we've got the GTE 1 and 2 having a battle. Obviously, it's a bit more clearer in LMPs, but LMP1 is considerably closer at this moment in time, isn't it? You know, they're less than a second apart. I think for the last 16 minutes, there's going to be an interesting battles all the way through the field, Chris.
Yeah, and I think the LMP2s are sort of demonstrating it. If you can break that toe, then you can really make a pace advantage work out. I mean, obviously some drivers are going to just be naturally quicker than others. Some will have a setup that just suits their driving style on this track better than others. So sometimes these battles can give us a false impression of just how close or disparate the field can be, because it makes such a difference on this circuit in particular, having access to that draft. But if you say, for example, Lotterman and Valentin here, if just being in that draft for as long as possible, like we were saying earlier with the fuel issues at the end, that could make the difference between an extra few places. I think it's one of the most satisfying feelings you can get as a driver, is getting your fuel exactly right and just making those positions on that last lap or two when other drivers have made those calculations not quite so well. So we'll find out in about 15 minutes who's done those calculations well and who hasn't.
Yeah, as we see, looks like is out in the lead. We've got Gade 0.83 seconds back at the moment. We're coming down into the chicane at 11. I can't really see this. It looks like takes out a cone there, just puts it off track to make sure it's not causing any more danger for anybody else. So we have a Gade close up. He's 0.8 back at the moment. But again, we've got Lotterman here, Rack and Valentin. I think he's making a move on Rack at the moment. Lotterman is on our right, Rack is on our left, and Rack manages to keep the position. We have got car number 16 as well involved. That's Taylor. He's in through in an LMP2. I think this is going to be a very close battle with these guys at the moment there, Chris. We're coming down the second straight. We're going to be heading into 12 and 13 very shortly. Which, Lotterman's made the move on Rack, but Rack's possibly going to be looking at the toe again. Lotterman's tucked up behind Rack, sorry. As we go back on board with Redditon and Hack now, they are coming down into the back straight, I believe. Rack is on the inside, Redditon is on the outside. This is not a corner that we would generally see this move on, but Hack seems to have made it work. Excellent driving there, but we've got Reddington still behind him. And this is our battle for third and fourth, guys. We're coming down on A's. We're heading down into the Porsche curve section at the moment. As we see Max Coos now as well, with Myers behind us and Picard in front. He's had a very quiet one this week, Chris. We normally see him involved with some interesting, tasty battles, but Coos has had a bit of he's had a bit of a quiet one, not really appeared much on camera, which I suppose in a way is good for him because it means he hasn't done anything wrong, Chris.
Yeah, generally that can often be a good thing. You often find at the end the sort of any compilations you see at these races is all of the crashes, and you don't want to be in those ones. No. That's for sure. But Reddington's actually got back ahead of Hack, it looks like. But I think Sophie will be probably very frustrated because it was sort of 5 or 6 minutes of madness has just hugely cost her, because the pace she was showing in that first 20-25 minutes was probably the most impressive of anyone on the field, although Cowlarts does have the fastest lap currently, a 3:11.83, which just goes to show what I know when I was predicting they'd be going sub 3:10. Obviously the track hasn't cooled down quite as much as we were hoping, but that's a good thing in some ways because it means it's a challenge for these drivers in trickier conditions. And of course we've not really mentioned the fact it's now dark, which just makes hitting those apexes just that little bit harder. You lose some of the visual references, although perhaps if you're being flashed by a driver behind, that's a little bit easier to pick up, which can usually turn out to be a good thing.
Yeah, as we got there, we got Jonathan McLaughlin. Curbs is relentless. He's in YouTube chat at the moment. He is, as we've seen before, we've got this freeway between Rack, Lotterman and Valentine now as we go on board with Albert and Stadinsky. Albert has made the move. They're side by side. I think there was a little bit of door rubbing from Stadinsky there that managed to keep Albert behind it, coming down into Indianapolis and Arnage before we head down into 2021 and into the Porsche curve section. Now, that was very tight, and I think it probably, a little bit more door rubbing than we've seen here, as we see Sophie there and Reddington still having their battles. We're coming down into 12 before we go into 13. There you go. We're going into the first part of 12 as we're coming out now, going onto the little straight before we kink right onto 13, and there it is. We've got coming up into the Mulsanne corner section of 14 and 15. It's going to be very interesting to see what Sophie does here. She's tucked right up behind Reddington at the moment with 0.10, 0.10. We're going to be poking our nose out. We're just letting Reddington know we're still here. You're not getting away. We're still tucked up behind you there, Chris. And Sophie's sort of, I would say, done the right thing there. But obviously, these racing drivers' mentalities are completely different to us, Chris. We're quite conservative. As Sophie there pulls out on the left-hand side, we've got Reddington on the right as we look at the screen at the moment. And there you go. The move is done. Coming into the Indianapolis chicane. As we go right now, we're going to be going left very shortly. There you go. We go left and then right out onto the chicane, going on to 20, 21 and 22. And that's the move done, Chris.
Yeah, I think Hack seems to be very comfortable coming out of the corner at the end of Mulsanne, because that's the second lap in a row we've seen her make that move on Reddington. Got it done a little bit earlier this lap. But they're not going to want to battle too hard, so I don't think they'll be catching Cowlarts with his 11.5 second gap. But Gomez in 5th is only 7 seconds behind, and he's not lapping quicker than these two yet. But if they start trading places too aggressively, because there's probably only 4 laps left at the end of this one, as we have 11 minutes to go as Curbs is coming across the start-finish line now. So there's not a huge amount of time left for them, as we're going to have a look at Mikkel Gade and see what happened between him and Luxak here.
Yeah, I think Gade's out in front now. He's got Luxak in front of us.
Oh, just outbraked himself, it looks like.
Yeah. And that's a very unusual incident there, as I say, from the driver of nearly 8K of iRacing, because it's very unusual to see them types of mistakes. But we go on board back with a Lotterman battle at the moment as we swap back. There you go, we're on board with a Lotterman. I believe this is still Lotterman and Valentine there in the car number, Rack and Lotterman, sorry. As we pull it out to our left, there is Rack again, taking that line away from us, which prevents us, unfortunately, carrying the corners through. But again, these guys have been trading, Chris, and been very battling. Now, we've got 10 minutes, both up 6 positions on our starting grid. We're round the, are we going to be looking sensibly, Chris? I'm just worried, worried for these guys. They've been going now 51 minutes. Are we going to be sensible, or do you think we're going to wait for mistakes, or are we going to push the gaps and push the mistakes?
Well, I think they're racing drivers. They're always going to want to push, and Dawson is less than 2 seconds up the road. So there's, again, like we've been saying, you don't want to cost yourself too much time with the battling, because you've got to play the long game here. They could catch Dawson if Dawson's not got the right amount of fuel in, for example. That 2 seconds is going to evaporate on that last lap with all the fuel saving Dawson would need to do. And of course, Lotterman here has had a lot more fuel saving opportunities just by virtue of being behind, as we have an LMP1 coming through, I believe.
Yes, Cora coming through there really did sort of push that move, I believe, Chris. It looked like it was very close in front. Yeah, as you can see, Gade absolutely flashed Lotman and Rack flashing him on the lights there. That was a very risky move to be making, and he did kind of chop the nose off Rack there, I think, as well. So that was LMP2s don't always have the best reputation, do they, Chris, for overtaking the GTEs anyway? So,
You'll find every class hates every other class. It's just the nature of multi-class, sadly.
Yeah, as we just see Hack now going past Reddington there, Chris, as well. He's now a second up on Reddington. So Reddington's had quite a little bit of must have seen what's going on. He's quite slow, unfortunately. But we see the Lotterman now, he's on his lights as well. So he's obviously angry at car 31, which is Deme there. He's obviously trying to catch Cora, who we see made the initial risky move on these three. There's not much love lost between classes, Chris, as we said, is there? You know, any more than probably me as an LMP2 driver, and, you know, as we know, producer Sean driving GTEs, you know, the love isn't always there, is it? Let's just categorise it in that way, shall we?
Yeah, I mean, as much as we're saying every class hates each other, I think the GTEs just have that little bit of extra hatred for the prototype cars, because I think you'll see that you can tell which drivers have driven all of the classes, because they seem to have a better grasp of when is an acceptable time to make the move and when is not, because of course the GTEs coming through a corner are not actually that much slower than the LMP2s.
And Rack has gone through. As you can see, Rack has made his move. Now, we said about that 2.5 second gap. That 2.5 second gap plummeted within the last minute or a half ago. But traffic, I think, and I'm saying traffic, but they are the back of the field. But you know what I mean? They're letting cars through and people cutting people's noses off. Kind of had a big part to play for Dawson on that one. So we've got Rack. Rack's 16 seconds behind Luxic. Dawson is 0.25, and we are rapidly closing. Going down into the right-hander, which leaves us a little bit of a short straight again before we head down into Indianapolis and Arnage. You know, Rack got the move done there, Chris. He's now just got to make sure he doesn't lose it back again on these straight sections.
Yep, we are at that point where you need to make those moves stick, and this is Borja Bueno, who I believe has had an incident, which is not very bueno. So this is this is an end of the race kind of incident. Just the power on a little bit too early. Luckily, with the headlights, you can see if someone's coming nice and easily. So a pretty swift rejoin for Bueno. I think he's only lost out to Leiden Lee there, who's quietly had a pretty solid race in fourth. That is one place down from qualifying, but I think you'd take a fourth. I think Leiden's been one of the quicker LMP2s, but again, one of those drivers who just doesn't seem to get the lucky break. But does seem to be to a lesser extent today so far.
Yes, we've got Soto and Mendez head. Well, let's have a little look at the standings currently as well. So we've got Jan Korbs, who's now 4 seconds ahead of Kolotz in second. We've got Hack there in third, Gomez in fourth, Pizzo in fifth, Navarro is out in sixth, Reddington is all the way down into seventh position on my timing tower, but I think my timing tower may be having
Reddington's still in fourth, yeah.
So we'll go by the one that you can see on screen, guys. We've got Korbs in first, Kolotz in second, Hack in third, Reddington fourth, Gomez fifth, Pizzo in sixth, Navarro in seventh, Labate and Mills unfortunately out at the moment. In the LMP2 class, we got Back in pole in first, Hout in second, Taylor in third, Lee in fourth, Bueno in fifth, Cora in sixth, Deme in seventh, Picard in eighth, Kuz in ninth, Myers in 10th, and we've got Studensky is 4 seconds behind us in 11th. Let's go down into the GTEs. We've got Gade out in front at the moment, Luxak in second, Rack in third, Dawson in 4th. We see we've got Lotterman as well, just a second back. He's in 5th. Valentin 6th. Charbe in 7th. Soto in 8th. Mendes 9. Simnar is in 10th position at the moment. He's up 3 on his grid, on his qualifying, so that's absolutely amazing. So that's rounding out your standings with 4.5 minutes to go. We are spread out. We've got a big gap after the 6th place in the LMP1, as you can see, guys, on the track map at the moment. 4 minutes, Chris. You know, 3-minute lap. So we're looking at this one. Maybe if we could cross the line from Dawson there, I think this is going to be one more maybe for their final lap, as we see Jan Korbs now, Chris. He's only 3 seconds back now, so he's lost a second somewhere. Not long to go. Are you going to stick with Calots, Chris? With 2 laps remaining?
I think bar a miracle, because there was a 2-second disparity in lap time there. Cowlart's 2 seconds quicker than Curbs on the last one, but that will probably be traffic related. And as you can see on the track map, it's probably only Myers and Studensky that Curbs is going to have to worry about in terms of LMP1s. There is, of course, Charvet, the Ford GTE as well, but if he catches them on the Mulsanne straight, that's nothing he's got to worry about really. And it'll be white flag lap after this. I think Sophie Hack's pace, again, just that 5 minutes of madness will be so frustrating, because to have pulled out nearly 4 seconds on Reddington in the last 2 laps, that is pretty impressive. Although, again, Curbs a lap before has set the fastest lap of the race at 3:11.17. So, again, as McLaughlin said in YouTube chat, as you said earlier, James, Curbs, when he gets going, it's just absolutely relentless. That ability to just pull lap after lap out and just get quicker and quicker. It must be incredibly demoralising for Cowlarts, who, you know, has shown really good pace this evening as well. And he's just got no answer for it, really.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I think it'd be interesting to see if we, you know, if we could actually get Corbs in for an interview to find out why he's 1 lap qualifying. But, you know, it's something maybe I'll send him a little message and see if he can explain as we come past now. I believe that's Stadinsky in the LMP2s. We've got Calots is only 3 seconds behind us. We've got 2 minutes on the white flag lap after this one. I think it's going to be it's going to be interesting to see whether or not Corbs clears the traffic safely, Chris. 1 lap ago, he's coming down into a thick of things now. We've got little pockets of cars that may make a difference onto this final lap. But I don't know. I think with the traffic, I think this is Corbs' race to lose, Chris. And I think Calots has done rather well, but I don't think he was as close as what you maybe thought he would have been.
I mean, 4 seconds over an hour is still pretty close. But I think one thing with the traffic that we'll hope happens, this is if the drivers behave, is most of them aren't going to be batting anymore, certainly not with 1 lap to go. There's, you know, if there's more than 2 or 3 seconds between you and the other driver, you're not in a battle with them. So in theory, you'd like to think that the lapped traffic will just be that little bit more acquiescent to the drivers coming through, because the last thing you want to do is get involved in an unnecessary incident with another class. So just help facilitate that pass that little bit better. Certainly if you're Jan Curbs, you'll be using your mind powers to convince them to do this as we come through onto the white flag lap. And he's just very patient behind the GTE car there, can take him on the main straight. And we are 1 lap away from the end of this race.
Yeah, as you see Jakob start his last lap there, you know, courtesy from the GTEs, flashing each other to say thank you on the way down. I think, Chris, this is Corbs, and he's just, as you know, as we've seen previously, he's just absolutely relentless. You see Stadinsky there going past Myers. Those guys have been battling. They were very close earlier on when we were watching them as well. Stadinsky doesn't really believe in the settling down there, Chris, does he? 1 lap to go, and he's still making moves as if it's, you know, halfway through the race. Yeah,
I think when you're an aggressive driver, it pays off when it pays off really handsomely, because you're going to be quicker. And if you can control that aggression, that's where you see the absolute fastest drivers, because I don't think you can get away with being passive at the top levels. And Studensky is anything but passive. But Myers is not done here. He wants to get that move done. Studensky is defending.
Yeah, as we see Myers now in 11th and 12th, respectively. We've got GTE in the way. Stadinsky's boxed in, so nowhere to go. We've got Trevor Myers on our right. There is Stadinsky there coming down. We're coming in to 11 on. Oh, we're going to take the right-hand corner on board. And we've got 3, and that is Sophie Hack coming through as well. He's trying to get, she's trying to get in and out of the LMP2s there as well. Well,
trying to hack her way through the field.
Hacker, oh, love it, Chris. Love it. Puns on the last lap there. You know what I mean? Good job, buddy. I was wondering, it only took you an hour to get them in. I thought they might have been in a little bit sooner, but
yeah, it's past my bedtime.
You can see we got GTE in front of us now. We got Hack there, Stadinsky, Myers in the last lap. Stadinsky's is a relatively ruthless individual, and as we said earlier on, you know, it doesn't take many prisoners. He passes as Bashora there. What's Bashora been up to, Chris?
Well, up until this point, a relatively quiet race, but trying to go through the first turn a little bit quicker than that car wanted to. But you know, this is probably when you're all on your own at the end of the race. Test the limits now. It's good practice for maybe later in the week if you're looking at other races. I suspect that's not what Bashura was doing there, but it's certainly what I'd be telling people afterwards. Were it me. Always thinking.
Especially when you're on the broadcast as well, Chris. They'll be like,
yeah.
You're on the broadcast. You're like, yeah, I was just getting prepped up for next, you know, as the week goes on, I was testing limits on the...
Yeah, race drivers look for limits everywhere they can find them.
Yeah, on the final lap of the final, on the race when I've been racing for an hour. I don't know if it's almost like one of the fisherman's tales there, Chris, I think. But as you can see, Lotman and Rack still going at it now. This is the battle for 4th and 5th in class on GTE. I think we're going to be jumping on board with Corbs very shortly. He's coming through Corvette at the moment. And now as Corbs comes down, there seems to be a continuation, doesn't it, Chris, where we turn around and say Corbs has had a bad qualifying. But as you can see, we're coming through the Ford chicane. And just as per normal, round 4 of the championship, Corbs is going to take this. However, we have got Colos very close, but Corbs, keep going. Keep going. Oh, yeah, I was going to say, woof. Oh, that was very lucky. Corbs first, Colots in second. Hack, I believe, is finished in 3rd. There she is, absolutely stunning drive. Reddington in 4th now in LMP1. Gomez coming through, and look how close everybody is there, because on the field, you know, pretty much half the field going past the start-finish straight very shortly. Daniel Pizzo is in 6th. Excellent drive from him. Congratulations, as we see Andrew Dawson coming through. He's finished as well. And Charvet, you know, that glow of Charvet's car is absolutely incredible in the Ford there, Chris, as well. Is in 7th place in class. They'll be coming across the line, well, pretty much now as we see it on screen. That's absolutely incredible. Soto, he's in 8th. We've got 8th, 9th, and 10th. So we've got Soto, Mendes, and Simnar. They'll be coming through not very far apart, probably 4 seconds, 5 seconds as we're coming down again. There you go, Soto. Congratulations for you. Crossing the line. There is Mendes as well in his Corvette. The fastest Corvette in the field there, Chris. I don't know if anybody's told him that, you know.
Pretty easy to be the fastest Corvette in a field of one.
Yeah, don't tell him, Chris. Don't tell him. You know what I mean? I'm sure he's not realised it. We'll tell he's the fastest Corvette. You know, Charvet's the fastest Ford, but, you know, we have got 2 of them. So I suppose in a way. But we got back out in front now as we're coming down into the end of the Porsche curves. Going to be going into the Corvette curves very shortly. There you go. Down into 34 chicane. Back is going to be your winner of LMP2. Houghton is in 2nd. Taylor, I think, is going to keep 3rd. Lee's going to keep 4th. And then we got a little bit of a tight battle for 5th, 6th, and 7th with Navarro mixed in there as well. Be interesting to see, but I think that's going to be back. Well done, your round 4 winner. Harley Houghton is in 2nd place. Well done. Absolutely incredible. Oh, a little bit of an off. No, I've just said well done, and you have put the car in the jump.
You know, just making sure that we're fully aware of what's going on there. It's good for Houghton to make sure that we're paying attention right until the end. I was actually thinking Pickard in 8th of LMP2 was only about 5 seconds up the road from curb. So I think if that had been me at the end of an hour-long race where you sort of had quite a lonely race, I'd be very tempted just to pull over to the side and not have to do that final extra lap. But I think a proper racer, it's just making sure they can get every advantage, because you don't know, maybe one of these guys would have run out of fuel.
Yeah, so I would have been in that same type of thinking, especially with such a long lap. Chris, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
With a nearly 3.5 minute lap, 3 minutes 48 seconds, I'd have just let him go through. You carry on, mate. I'll just finish here. As we say, DeMay now coming across in 7th position, and there is Strettenberger is in 12th in GTA and Ford, and the last remaining car, I believe, is Pickard. Wow. So let's have a look at the standings if we can. Not quite there yet. Okay, Chris, we'll have a waffle. So, what?
Pickard is just taking their time just before the finish line. I think they've now come across.
There you go.
So we'll just wait for the timing software to load up the results. Obviously, it's a very long track. You've got a lot of drivers to have to think about. And there we go. We can have the LMP1 field on the board. So we've got Jan Curbs 1. Only by a quarter of a second over Simon Cowlarts in the end. Sophie Hack had probably one of the most action-filled races we've seen in a while to come home in 3rd and take 15 points. Andre Reddington probably in the running for the lead at one point. Will have to settle for 4th. Mark Gomez, pretty quiet race in the end, comes 5th. Daniele Pizzo has recovered to 6th place after leading for a substantial portion of the early race. And then Antonio Navarro finished on the same lap, but unfortunately for Carlo Labatti and Taylor Mills in 8th and 9th, they weren't able to finish.
As we go on to the LMP2s now, as well, just waiting for them to come on screen. We got back in 1st. Houghton in 2nd, Taylor in 3rd, Lee in 4th, Wayno in 5th, Cora in 6th, DeMay in 7th, Picard in 8th, Koos in 9th, Stadinsky in 10th, Myers in 11th, Albert in 12th, Paul in 13th, Federico Leonardi in 14th, Christian Pereira in 15th position. So on to the GTEs, and let's round these out. We've got Mikkel Gade picks up 25 points for 1st place. Mateusz Luxak in 2nd, Rack in 3rd, Yaki in 4th, Lotterman there, Valentin in 5th, Dawson in 6th, Chave in 7th, Soto in 8th, Mendes 9th, Simnar, who's just come into YouTube chat as well, he's in 10th position, Bakura in 11th, Strettenberger in 12th, Vincenzo there, sorry, in 13th, and Johan Lemos in 14th. So, Chris, that was just another epic race from Corbs. And if you can, as we look at the standings, we'll do the standings quickly, Chris, then I'll get to you. You've got Jan Curbs in 1st on 76 points. Will Woodland still in 2nd, although not here this evening, is in 2nd. Andre Reddington 3rd, Labatti in 4th, Taylor Mills in 5th, Colotz in 6th, Sophia Hack in 7th, Daniel Pizarro in 8th, James Armstrong 9th, and rounding out the top 10 is Mark Gomez of your LMP1s. Yeah, LMP2s, you got Didier Duchateau in 1st, Kenneth Gilbranson still in 2nd. Back now, actually, it's joint 1st position with the other Didier Duchateau and Gilbranson. So that's absolutely amazing driving there. Andre Barrilero is in 4th, Robert Guilford and Thomas King 5th, 6th, respectively. Howard up to 7th, Gabriel Ruse. Izzo Taylor rounds out our top 10, and Studensky there just tucked up in 11th position. So into our GTEs, Verda Levo still leaves with 36 points, but Rack is up 2 places to 35, lighting a 3rd, Koloboksov 4th, Mikkel Gade in 5th, Luxak in 6th, Oramus in 7th, Pedro Martins 8th, Decanter in 9th, and Simnar, you're still in 10th on 12 points from the broadcast standings. Chris, give you a challenge, okay? 1 sentence to sum that up for us this evening.
Oh, only 1 sentence?
Only 1 sentence, sir.
That's not my 1 sentence I've just had there, is it, I hope?
That's it. Right, guys, on to next week. No, Chris, I'm only joking. Go on, carry on.
I mean, there's too much to say. It was another action-packed, brilliant sprint race. I think surprisingly clean, I would say. That would be my 1 sentence. Surprisingly clean.
All right, guys. So what fabulous racing have we got coming up for you this week on the Total Sim Sport YouTube channel? We have got the ISRC. That is a 6 hours of Spa. That will be started 12 midday on our Total Sim Sport YouTube and Twitch channel. Then on Sunday, it's the IR UK GT Freeze, brought to you from the Hungaro Ring. And it's the turn of the Yams this week. And it was quite an interesting battle between the pros and elites last weekend. So this is going to be an absolute fun one. We should be live on the IR UK Twitch and YouTube channel that evening. And then on the following Tuesday, we are back into the F3s live from Mo Sports, which could be an absolute chaotic race, Chris. You're commentating on it. What's your thoughts on Mo Sport next week?
I'm scared, and okay. I'm in the commentary booth. I don't know how the drivers feel.
That rounds it out as well. So next week we are at Hockenheim here in the European Sprint Series. You're not going to want to miss that one. And guys, if you haven't already, please subscribe, thumbs up, turn on them bells for absolute notifications of when we go live. And you're not going to want to miss this next week's of racing. From me, Chris, and producer Sean, good night, take care, and maybe see you on the track sometime.